Hello, the Pioneer viewers. We are here again with a new report. We will soon convey to you the developments on the last day of the Russia-Ukraine war. According to the latest reports, the fierce fighting between the Russian army and the Ukrainian army continues in positions on the Kherson and the Donetsk front line. We have often stated this in our previous reports, so we can say that today's reports largely covers the latest developments on the Donetsk and the Kherson front lines. Before moving on to our report, we should also mention the following. The clashes on the Kherson axis seems to have reduced their intensity a little bit. It would not be wrong to say that this storm, which we mentioned in our previous reports, had an effect on this event. Let's also say that some mobilisations have started on the Bakhmut front line and the Zaporizhia front line. So what is the latest situation on the front line in general? Let's examine the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. I also have a small request from you. You can support me and my teammates by using the super thanks button below the video. Thank you in advance for your support. Let's get started. The Pioneer reports. We begin by analyzing developments on the Kherson front line. For some time in Zaporizhia front line was usually the first part of our report. You could even say that the Zaporizhia front line was the first in our reports throughout the Ukrainian counteroffensives. However, this is no longer the case. The Kherson front line is now the first place in our reports due to the great activity that started on the Kherson front line and gained a great momentum. As we mentioned at the beginning of our report, there was a calmness on the Kherson front line compared to the past days. The Krinky direction was an exception. The area was quite busy. Infantry units of both sides are engaged in the intensive counterattacks throughout Krinky. Russian sources report that this situation will change in the coming days in favor of the Russian armed forces. Therefore, some of the Russian special forces are reportedly deployed in the Poima-Krinky direction. However, the region needs to be carefully monitored for a while longer. We think that everything that we can say for the moment would be a premature talk. The following days will bring new developments. Ukrainian bridgeheads on the eastern side of the Dnieper River are still in place. There are reports that the Ukrainian armed forces are also fortifying their positions in the region. However, these reports have not yet been verified. It is quite obvious that an apocalypse will break out in the region. What is not clear is when this apocalypse will occur. We don't think it will happen now because the positions of the Russian armed forces were heavily damaged in the storm. They need to recover a little more. The Ukrainian armed forces are also reinforcing the troops stations in the region. The completion of these processes and the breaking of the storm will be simultaneous. Let us also briefly mention the Zaporizhia front line. As you know, there is a stagnation in both of the Rabotny sections and the Vuhledar section of the Zaporizhia front line. In the Rabotny section, the Ukrainian armed forces continue to dominate the area. In addition, the Ukrainian armed forces continue their attempts to advance in the direction of Verbov. Let's recall quickly. Ukrainian troops aim to reach an important crossroads here and move behind the Russian positions. At the moment, we do not observe any progress. On the other hand, there is Russian pressure on the western part of the Rabotny. However, this pressure is not yet capable of breaking the defense lines of the Ukrainian armed forces. We observe that counter-conflicts take place in this region from time to time. However, there has not yet been any developments that would cause a border change. There is also a stagnation in the Vuhledar section of the Zaporizhia front line. Russian attacks on the Stormyorsk and Yorkhain regions continue. These attacks have already been going on for some time. Therefore, we can say that it has become a routine. However, no change of positions has taken place in this region so far. We also see that mutual artillery shelling continues in the region. In particular, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces are targeting Russian positions in the direction of Priyodny. However, as we have stated, these attacks are not game-changing attacks, they're just routine attacks. And that's it. Now let's continue our daily map reports by analyzing the latest situation on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, the Russian armed forces, supported by long-range weapons on the Donetsk front line, attacked Mariinka, near Pervomovskoye, Severnoye, and the industrial zone southeast of Avdiivka. In the industrial zone in particular, the Russian armed forces made progress. This is already due to the transfer of the armored vehicles of the 239th Russian Tanks Regiment to the area. As you know, all sources in the Russian army often complain about the lack of firepower of the Russian army. According to reports, the armored vehicles of the 239th Tanks Regiment were sent from other regions. Therefore, it seems possible that we may lose a little more firepower of the Russian army in other areas outside of the Donetsk front line. In the coming days, the front lines outside of the Donetsk front line should be monitored more carefully. Following the shelling by the Ukrainian artillery, the Ukrainian armed forces launched a counterattack near Stepnoe. However, Ukrainian troops were unable to advance this area. The Russian armed forces continue to hold their current positions. However, we don't think that the Ukrainian army will give up here. Attempts to advance will resume after a short period of time. Now let's continue our daily map report by examining today's developments on the Bakhmut front line. According to the latest data from the region, Russian troops with artillery support tried to push Ukrainian troops out of the dominant hills northwest of the Klishchivka. However, the Ukrainian armed forces managed to repel the attacks of the Russian armed forces by using the advantages of the dominant hills. Russian attacks near Kherson and Donetsk were also repulsed by the Ukrainian defense forces. Let's continue with the Luhansk front line. In recent days, the Luhansk front line is also one of the areas of activities. According to the latest reports, in the direction of Luhansk in the Serbiansky forest area near Dibrova, local counterattacks took place. Both sides failed to make any new gains during these clashes. The Russian armed forces, supported by artillery units, continued their offensive actions from the Orlinka direction and near Sinikivka. However, there were no significant changes in the demarcation line between the two armies along the front line. So what do you think about the new Russian fortifications on the Kherson front line? Do you think the Russian army will be able to establish control in the region? What should the Ukrainian armed forces do to stop Russian advance on the Donetsk front line? What will happen if the Ukrainian armed forces withdraw from the Donetsk front line? What are your opinions about the movements on the Luhansk front line? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.